The transfer portal is open, so are the Tigers buyers. Let's talk about it. Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making it your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you so much for that. Brian Kelly met with reporters after LSU's practice on Tuesday and notably discussed the transfer portal, which is open now here as we record this episode on Wednesday, the day the transfer portal has opened here in the spring window. So naturally, the question was going to be asked to Brian Kelly, is there anything you're looking for? Here was the headline.
Yeah, I mean, I like our roster right now. It wouldn't surprise me if we didn't have anybody in the portal on either side, either leaving our program or adding. I would be, if you ask me right now, I would be happy to take this roster right into May, and on both sides of it. Maybe that's fool's gold. Maybe that's wishing more than anything else. But I like what we've done with this roster. I like the development of it. Not all of that is in my control, obviously. But I can tell you we're not like actively saying we got to have this, we got to have that. We feel good about our roster. If something shows itself that is an incredible opportunity, we're certainly going to investigate any time that we can help our football team, and so we're always going to be looking to help our team, but it's not like it was obviously in January.
So he said it's not like it was in January or last year at this point where they were desperate for defensive tackle help. Remember, they went after everybody. They went after C.J. West, who was the Kent State defensive tackle who landed in Indiana. They went after Simeon Barrow, who ended up at Miami. Of course, Dominic Williams from TCU, who landed at Oklahoma. So dramatically different now from the December portal window where the Tigers went and added double-digit players and spent a boatload of money to improve the roster, but very different from a year ago at this time. Now, that's one interesting thing. And there are positions, I believe, that they could be looking to add, which I'll get to in a second. But keep in mind, the other part of that, maybe that was the more surprising thing that Brian Kelly said, was players coming or going. Because I'm just of the belief that in this day and age, whenever a portal window opens, it doesn't matter who you are, what team you are, you're going to have players enter the portal. Last year in the spring portal window, LSU had 8 players leave. Now, I don't think that's a condemnation on Brian Kelly or the program or anything. I just think that's college football now. When you have guys that maybe return after the December portal window, they go through spring. And remember, especially different now for LSU because you went in that December portal window and added double-digit players and starting caliber players. You added 3 defensive ends. You added a big defensive tackle in Sadir Mitchell. You added 2 offensive linemen. You added 3 receivers. You added a safety. You added a corner. You added 2 cornerbacks. So you had Jakeem Jackson and Mansour Delane. So you added a ton of guys, not just bodies, but experienced guys who are taking key reps now through spring. So it's very likely that at some point in spring, there's someone who thought they might be taking a step forward this year, got pushed down on the depth chart and might be looking to leave. So this isn't a negative commentary. It's just a statement of fact. I believe you will see players enter the portal. If you're wondering, last year, the guys were Kai Preen, Ryan Yates, Fitzgerald West, John Emery, Christian Braithwaite, Bryce Langston, Jeremiah Hughes, Joe Cryer, and Connor Gilbreth. Well, Preen's a receiver. Yates was a defensive back. Hughes, defensive back. West and Langston were defensive linemen. Cryer, an offensive lineman. So Braithwaite was linebacker and Gilbreth was tight end. But the point is, like, you can look at certain position groups and understand why someone might leave from that position group if they thought they were going to take a step forward this year, and then in spring it was pretty evident that they're not. So I don't know who. I could guess position groups where you have lots of bodies: receiver, defensive back, offensive line, where you have a lot of bodies and where you added players via the portal who are taking key reps. I could see younger guys leave, and I just think that's a very natural thing to assume. Now, the other side of that is, what positions might LSU be looking to address, as Brian Kelly said, if the right situation were there to improve the team? Well, I'll give you 3 positions, and it's 3 positions that they targeted in the last portal window, and maybe came up a little short of someone they wanted. And I'll tell you, defensive tackle, safety, and offensive tackle would be the 3. So defensive tackle, not because you've got bodies. You've got 9 scholarship defensive tackles. You added 4 true freshmen. Of course, you added Sadir Mitchell from Texas. You got 9. Jacoby Guillory's coming back off of injury. You got 9 scholarship defensive tackles. That's plenty. What you don't have is a dude. And Jacoby Guillory is your most experienced guy with 41 games played, but he's only started 5 games. And that's the most experienced guy. Now, Ahmad Bro and Dom McKinley ran with the ones in spring. And I think both those guys are poised for really big years. And of course, Jacoby Guillory's coming back now as well for a 6th season. But if somebody goes in the portal like Dominic Williams a year ago, or Simeon Barrow, that has been a multi-year starter at a power level school, and you can add that person who's got 20, 30 career starts, then you have to look at that at defensive tackle. At safety, I think you're very pleased with the addition of Tamarcus Cooley from NC State. He could play anywhere really in your defensive backfield. But after that, it's Tobiano. It's effectively a lot of guys that don't have a lot of playing time. So again, if there's somebody who's been a Power 5 star, Power 4 starter that goes in the portal and you can add a veteran safety, I think you look to do that. And offensive tackle's the other one. Now, that's going to be fascinating to me because, Josh Thompson, they wanted to play guard. I've repeated this over and over. Tyree Adams and Weston Davis, they would love to see earn those starting jobs at offensive tackle. Now, you've gone through spring. How do they feel about those 2 guys? Now, we don't know the answer to that. There was a lot of shuffling and mixing and matching, but one thing that was consistent is when they ran the first unit out there, Tyree Adams was the left tackle and Weston Davis was the right tackle with the ones almost exclusively throughout all of fall camp. Throughout all of spring practice. So it seems like those 2 guys are set at those spots. And if they are, great. But if you can add someone if you can add the equivalent of Braylon Moore, Josh Thompson, who you added for center and guard at tackle, then I think you do it. I don't think you're out actively hunting that position, but if a situation or an opportunity presents itself, then I think you owe it to your roster to look at, because you're all in. I mean, it's not about the future. It's not about protecting people's feelings. It's about winning a national championship in 2025. And if there's a player out there that can help you do it, you owe it to yourself, to the program, to everything, to see if you can go add that person. So portal's open. Of course, we will keep this covered throughout the entirety of this portal window. So as players may leave or join LSU, if there's interest, we'll have it all covered for you right here on Locked On LSU. Now, as the Tigers do wind down spring, Brian Kelly, when he met with reporters, did disclose what he said was a surprise to him throughout spring practice. You'll hear that next. Locked On LSU, your team every day. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I personally love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether you're picking your favorite team or if you're diving into player props, from three-pointers, steals, assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. That's FanDuel.com. So Brian Kelly, again, when he was meeting with reporters after practice on Tuesday, was asked point blank about surprises. Was there a surprise that he had so far through spring practice? And he went to the young guys. Give a listen.
Surprises. I just think overall, the understanding of how to go out and compete in practice it has been really, for me, outstanding for the young guys to pick it up, like the Solomon Thomases and the Carriers Kearns. They've done an incredible job as young players coming in and understanding how to compete. The DJ Pickett's, all of our mid-year freshmen have come in and really have adapted so quickly. And I guess that's why they're mid-years, right? I mean, they're so far ahead of their freshman counterparts that it really does show why they were able to graduate early from high school, because they were much more mature. Those kids have done an incredible job of really blending in and showing that they belong right away. They're going to be so far ahead coming into camp relative to being able to compete. That's been kind of a surprise to me. This is the first class that I've had at mid-semester where it's not like, that guy is so far away. It just feels like they've been here, and that's been a bit of a surprise.
He mentioned a few names there. He mentioned Solomon Thomas, who we did see seemingly slip on the depth chart from being really the second team left guard to maybe running with the threes, especially after Josh Thompson showed up. But I'll give you three that I think mid-years that are going to play a role in 2025. And I don't think this is going to be any surprise because it's three of the highest rated guys in your class who all happen to be mid-year enrollees. Carriers Kearns running as your second team left tackle and ran as your second team left tackle all throughout spring. So barring any type of change where LSU may bring in another tackle via the portal, like we just talked about, Carriers Kearns running at second left tackle. And I think maybe even more important is not just what position, like left tackle, but like who's the sixth offensive lineman and the seventh? Because what we've seen LSU do at times is when someone was injured or had to go out, they would shuffle the deck to get the five best on the field, not necessarily who's the backup at that position. So, for example, last year we saw, Tyree Adams was, until he had the hernia injury in the pregame against Ole Miss, which was weird. Tyree Adams was your sixth lineman. So for the first half of the season, anytime anyone came out at any position other than center, Tyree Adams went in. It was left tackle, right guard, didn't matter. He was the next guy in. So I could see something like that unfold, maybe for a player like Carriers Kearns. Now, there's a lot of what ifs here. Does Paul Mabenga win a starting job? Does DJ Chester win the starting center job? If not, does he go to right guard? Is he starting there? Is it Cohen Eccles? So there's a lot of different varieties that could happen there. But Kern, minimum, I think is going to be on your special teams blocking units and is going to play in every game. Like, I think Carriers Kearns will play in every game in 2025 for LSU. The other one on offense, obviously, is Harlan Berry. And in the spring practice on Saturday, the open scrimmage, there was no Caden Durham, so Caleb Jackson was with the ones and Harlan Berry was with the twos. But the thing that was most impressive about Berry wasn't his ability to dot the I and take a handoff run between the tackles. We've talked about it routinely. It's his ability in the pass catching game. And I want to remind you this, because this is probably something that we didn't focus enough on a year ago that really was a very integral part of LSU's offense. I think last year we talked so much about Nussmeier. We wondered all season, when was Chris Hilton going to come back? We talked about, of course, Kyron Lacey and Aaron Anderson having the big season they did. Caden Durham's explosive freshman season. What we didn't talk a lot about were the backs catching the ball out of the backfield. Josh Williams had 31 receptions a year ago. Caden Durham had 28. Now, Caleb Jackson, who had limited playing time, had 6, and John Emery had 1. Of course, he was injured before the second game. But Josh Williams and Caden Durham combined for 59 receptions. For context, Aaron Anderson led your team with 61. Kyron Lacey was at 58. Mason Taylor was at 55. CJ Daniels was at 42. So just Williams and Durham combined for the second most receptions, behind only Aaron Anderson at 51, and then Kyron was at 58. They combined for 59. So Joe Sloan has shown you he is going to throw the ball to his running backs out of the backfield. Now, Durham returns, but Josh Williams and his 31 receptions are gone. So someone's got to take that role, and I think that's how Harlem Berry is going to affect and influence the team as a true freshman in 2025. It's not necessarily going to be carrying the ball out of the backfield. It's going to be catching the ball. That's not to say he won't get carries. Maybe gets 3 to 5 rushing attempts a game. But I think it's going to be more touches for Harlem Berry. Maybe it's 5 to 7 touches per game, and a lot of that's going to be influenced in the passing game. Like, it would not surprise me at all if Berry ends up with 30-plus receptions, like basically replacing that Josh Williams productivity. But remember, Williams had 31 catches for 263 yards. He averaged 8.5 yards per catch. You would fully expect Harlem Berry to increase that yard per catch average. And then the other on defense, which is the obvious one, is DJ Pickett. He belongs. I mean, the most notable play from Saturday's open scrimmage was when Nick Anderson took the top off and burned DJ Pickett. Now, Michael Van Buren missed Anderson on the deep ball, but it was a go route on the left sideline and on the left side, and Pickett got burned. But boy, we've seen Pickett win more than his fair share of one-on-ones throughout this spring, and he is going to be a guy that's on the field. Remember, in this day and age of football, where you play mostly base nickel with 5 defensive backs or dime with 6, I can see a world where, look, Mansour Delane is your best corner. He's going to start. Nobody's talking about it or said it. Like, I'd be stunned. You go out there and it's just very obvious. He's experienced, he's long, he's physical, he's your best guy. Mansour Delane's going to start. And it's likely that Ashton Stamps, with his experience, will start at the other one. But Pickett, Woodland, maybe Irvine for the nickel spot, how you rotate is worth keeping an eye on. But like, DJ Pickett's going to play in every game, and those are the 3 early enrollees I tell you that are going to have an immediate impact for this team. Now, I mentioned Pickett getting burned by Nick Anderson. Brian Kelly was also asked about Nick Anderson because, look, Anderson missed all of last year. He missed the entire 2024 season at Oklahoma with a soft tissue injury with his quad. And he has been slow to come along. Like, early he's had a wrap on that leg all throughout spring. And he wasn't doing any contact. Well, as they moved throughout, he was taking part in the 11-on-11s, and in the open scrimmage on Saturday, he was taking full contact. He caught a ball out in the flat, made a guy miss, got a feel, and got tackled. So Nick Anderson has done more and more, and Brian Kelly sort of talked about the expectations there for him.
I think he was a little slowed by an injury that was lingering. We just wanted to be patient with him. Nick's a smart kid. He knows his body. He's not a guy that you have to push and say, hey, get out there. When he's ready, he's going to go compete. I think he just has a maturity about him that you don't have to worry about. Nick, when he's ready, he's going to go. He's going to compete. And as he's gotten healthy, you can see the kind of presence that he has. He's big, he's physical, he's athletic. I'm excited about him. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to win some key one-on-one matchups for us with his physicality, in particular some of those one-on-one key third down matchups that you need. So it's nice to see him rounding into form as we get late here into spring practice.
I want to give you some context on Nick Anderson. He was the top offensive player LSU got out of the portal, and by most accounts was the best receiver in this portal class, or among the top receivers in this portal class. I love what Nick Anderson brings because he brings you a different prototype, right? He's 6'4", 219 pounds. So you're talking about a big dude, right? You're talking about a big guy in Nick Anderson who is a different build than anyone else you currently have on the team. Like, when you look at Xavier Thomas, when you look at Berrien Brown, when you look at Aaron Anderson, you're talking about guys that all fit a similar build. Like, here you go. Chris Hilton's 6', 192. Kyle Parker's 5'11", 197. Xavier Thomas is 5'10", 195. Jelani Watkins, 5'9", 163. You run Aaron Anderson, 5'8", 187. Chris Hilton, 6 foot, 190 is the biggest guy. So now you have a 6'4", 219-pound guy, it tilts the field because it's just a completely different dynamic that that someone has to deal with your team. But at that build, 6'4", 219, Nick Anderson in 2023 averaged 21 yards per reception. Averaged 21 yards per reception. Let me give you some context. Last year, among qualifying receivers, now Chris Hilton had averaged like 27 yards per catch, but he only had like 9 catches on the year. It was a limited year because of his injury. Kyron Lacy averaged 14.9 yards per catch. Go back to 2023, the incredible season that Neighbors and Thomas had. Neighbors, 17.6. Brian Thomas, 17.3. Nick Anderson averaged 21 yards carry or reception. You'd have to go back to Jamar Chase. This is the best comp. Jamar Chase, who's also 6 feet tall, in his Biletnikoff winning season, averaged 21.2. Nick Anderson averaged 21.0. Like so think of the impact, the big playability Jamar Chase had in his Biletnikoff winning season. Like, that's the type of playmaker Nick Anderson is at 6'4", 219. That's why everybody's so excited about him. So when Nick Anderson blew past DJ Pickett, I'm not crushed about DJ Pickett. I'm pumped about DJ Pickett's going to win plenty. I'm pumped about Nick Anderson with that ability to stretch the field, adding a dynamic and a dimension that you don't presently have or didn't presently have before he showed up. So get excited about all those guys coming on. We also saw Colin Hurley coming back. We'll wrap up, talk a little bit about the quarterback situation. Brian Kelly talked about Colin Hurley, who was on the practice field with LSU Tuesday. It's Locked On LSU, your team every day. We all know the unfortunate auto accident that Colin Hurley was in, the redshirt freshman quarterback. On campus, he went home to Jacksonville to continue his rehab and recovery. And then Saturday, it was a surprise to many that Colin Hurley was there at the open spring practice. His teammates got to see him. His coaches got to see him. The Hurley family issued a statement saying that Colin's made a full recovery, which is fantastic to see. You're excited for the young person here, that he's healthy and he's back and no lingering effects from that the really scary car accident. But while he was there on Saturday for the open practice, he wasn't dressed. He was there supporting his teammates. Well, Tuesday, Colin Hurley was in uniform, taking part in some of the drills. And Brian Kelly gave an update on Hurley.
It was great to see Colin out there today. He was involved in, and you guys saw, he was involved in some of the one-on-ones. And, man, he looks great physically. He's got an unbelievably strong arm. It was just great to have him back out there. And just to have him here on campus is just a blessing to get that young man back here and be in the kind of physical condition that he is just exciting.
This won't come as a great surprise, but Hurley as a freshman, early enrollee, was listed at 6'1", 213. So again, not the 6'3", 220-pound quarterback that you'd like, the prototypical size, right? Like Nussmeier is listed at 6'2", 200. So Hurley actually 6'1", 213, a little thicker, maybe stockier than Garrett, but plenty of size. But part of the conversations that I had candidly with folks around the program a year ago was that Hurley was coming along slowly. And I don't think that that's any great surprise, right? We've talked about this, but he showed up on campus. I don't mean this to be like the Ryan Anderson from Bama. Do you know he's 17 years old? Well, he's now 18. But Hurley showed up at 16 years old. A early enrollee who reclassified. So like Colin Hurley should be about to finish his senior year of high school. Instead, he's already redshirted his freshman season at LSU, right? So he showed up at 16, like the midway point of his junior year of high school is when he showed up for spring last year. So naturally, I think we can all understand why physically, and he's an emotionally mature kid, but physically and mentally, and all that sort of stuff was going to be a pretty steep learning curve. So it was slow for Colin Hurley as a freshman in the 2024 season. I look at the quarterback position though, and when you lost Ricky Collins and A.J. Swan to the portal, you had to go add someone with experience. You couldn't go into the season with Nuss and then your bleep plan was redshirt freshman Colin Hurley, who never took a snap and had a pretty steep learning curve a year ago. You had to go add somebody. So you add Van Buren, who started 9 games for Mississippi State a year ago. Awesome. So you know what the lineup is this year. It's Nuss, it's Van Buren, and then Hurley's your number 3, and you didn't add a freshman in this class, as we know. Emil Picarella from U High will join as a preferred walk-on. And as we've talked about, like, he was a 3-star. He's not your typical PWO. That's not just a clipboard holder and a camp arm. Like, he was at one point a top 10 quarterback in the 2025 class. For whatever reason, his star rating, ranking, whatever, slipped. But he's a guy with size, can make all the throws, all that sort of stuff. So Picarella comes as well. He'll be your 4th. 26 is where it gets interesting, and I'm not trying to get too far ahead of myself because everyone's very excited about 2025. But Nuss will be gone. Van Buren's back as the presumptive starter, but then you'll have Colin Hurley behind him, assuming Hurley returns in 2026. And then you've got to add a quarterback assignee in the 2026 class. But I still believe that they'll probably next year be in the portal again looking at quarterback. Even if you add a freshman, it's just one of those things where you're in the same way that you had Nuss and you added Van Buren to add an experienced backup. When you lose Nuss, if you've got Van Buren in 26, you got to have the experienced backup. In the same way that they added A.J. Swan for 2024, and now they added Van Buren in 2025. Just look at the pattern. Like, Brian Kelly's showing you at Austin Thomas how they want to construct the roster. You want to have your starter, and you want to have an experienced backup. So in 26, if it's Van Buren, Hurley, a freshman coming in, like, you're not going to have an experienced backup. You'll have Van Buren, so you have to go add someone else. Just something to think about as you look forward and project the quarterback position, because it's never a bad time to talk about quarterback. It's the most important position in organized team sports. So great to see Colin Hurley back out there. We'll look forward to seeing what development and progressions he may make. But you better believe Van Buren's the number 2 this year, no matter what. And they're going to add someone via the portal for 2026 as well, regardless of who stays or goes. Of course, we'll be talking about it all right here, Locked On LSU. Hey, thanks so much for making it your first listen. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. Now for your second listen, how about you check out Locked On NFL Draft as your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level. Get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, if you're on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.